May their memories and the memories of all the fallen always be a blessing. Next, I want to update you on hostage negotiations discussions by Israel's war cabinet last night, representing Israel's national unity government. The war cabinet unanimously decided Israel will continue its operation in Rafa in order to apply military pressure on Hamas to release our hostages and achieve all the war's objectives. Despite Hamas's grandstanding, Hamas's proposal is far from Israel's core demands. Nevertheless, Israel will dispatch a ranking delegation to Egypt to maximize any chance of an agreement on terms acceptable to Israel to get our hostages out of Hamas's hand. Israel is committed to pursuing every avenue diplomatically and militarily to get our people home. I remind you that every moment they are held in captivity is a war crime. Now an operational update from our effort to uproot the last 4 battalions of Hamas from Rafa. This precise counter-terrorism operation has begun. The IDF are dismantling Hamas terrorist infrastructure within specific areas of eastern Rafa. We have informed Gazans through every possible means, on radio, in Arabic, flyers in Arabic, media in Arabic, internet, texts and phone calls, very specific, precise areas and streets in eastern Rafa, for them to move towards the expanded humanitarian area in Al-Mawasi and in Khan Yunis. There, they will receive full humanitarian aid, water, food, medical equipment, and shelter. Our intelligence has clearly shown that the Rafah crossing in particular with Egypt in eastern Rafah has been used for terrorist purposes. Our troops have now obtained operational control of the Gazan side of the crossing. Now, underneath that large border infrastructure are cross-border underground smuggling tunnels, sustaining and providing a lifeline to Hamas. These Hamas tunnels must be dealt with to shut off arms to the terrorists. International organizations working in the area have also been encouraged to temporarily evacuate prior to the beginning of the operation. Now, we note that remarkably, UNRWA has advised Gazans not to move. The same UNRWA who we've described as being a front for Hamas, a supposed humanitarian organization, has advised Gazans not to move out of harm's way. In the last 24 hours, IDF ground troops and Israeli Air Force fighter jets have eliminated Hamas terror targets in Rafah. We've targeted military structures, underground tunnels. 20 terrorists have been eliminated and 3 operational tunnel shafts have been located. Now, in videos and newscasts of the IDF's effort to liberate Rafah from Gaza, you won't see any of the cowardly Hamas fighters. The reason for that is they'll be hiding behind women and children. Next, an update from COGAT on the influx of humanitarian aid into Gaza. Sunday's Hamas deadly rocket fire targeting the humanitarian crossing of Kerem Shalom, which killed 4 of our young soldiers. It targeted the same crossing today as well at 11 a.m. As a result, Kerem Shalom and Nitzana crossings have been closed. So this is Hamas attacking the food lifeline, the very food lifeline to ordinary Gazans. Nevertheless, yesterday, 94 pallets were airdropped over northern Gaza, containing tens of thousands of packages of food. 46 aid trucks were delivered to northern Gaza. 88% of coordination requests for aid deliveries are approved. 35 trucks went through Israel's Ashdod port and then through the Erez crossing in the north of Gaza. 26 bakeries, Gaza bakeries, provide 5 million breads, rolls, and pita breads daily. The northern water pipeline from Israel is now fully operational, providing an average of 50 litres per person per day. Today, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., the IDF usual pause in operations in parts of Khan Yunis enabled the movement of humanitarian aid. The issue has never been about getting aid into Gaza, but getting aid to the civilians of Gaza who need it the most before it is looted by Hamas. So, more food aid enters Gaza every single day, 520,000 tons of aid, 27,000 trucks of food, water, medical supplies without limit, and shelter. The humanitarian aid arrives at the Gaza Strip, as we've said, by sea, by land, and by air. So that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions, which you should put in the chat. Please remember to include your news outlet. Thank you very much. First question, please.
First question is from Joel Polak of Breitbart News, and he asks, Axios and the Times of Israel both report that Israeli officials say they were surprised by Hamas's attempt to claim it had accepted a ceasefire, and that the U.S. had worked with mediators without Israel's knowledge. Can you confirm that Israel was surprised and that it was not informed by the U.S.?
Thank you for that question, Joel. I can't comment on that, but what I can tell you is that the sickness of Hamas continually surprises us. The fact that they shoot rockets over Kerem Shalom, targeting Kerem Shalom, the very lifeline of the people which they supposedly represent, has surprised us. But of course, the inhumane acts of this terrorist organization is the reason why we are going out, we're going after them. We're getting civilians out of harm's way, and we're going after the terrorist masterminds of Hamas. There are 4 last battalions in Rafa. We're going after them. What you saw last night was Hamas trying to save their skin, but it won't work. Yes, of course, we're always open to a diplomatic resolution to try and get our people out of Hamas's hands. But I must tell you that this operation in Rafa is designed to destroy the last 4 battalions of Hamas. All of us here in Israel, which send our sons and daughters into the army, the government, all the people in Israel here, the overwhelming majority, wall to wall, there is support for this operation because this deadly terrorist organization must be defeated. This country will be protected and Hamas will be completely annihilated. Next question, please.
You have an additional question from Joel, and he asks, can you repeat the statistical numbers on loaves of bread and pitas?
Thank you very much for that, Joel. Loaves of bread and pitas, I said in my brief that 5 million pita breads and rolls are produced by, I think I said 26 bakeries every single day in Gaza to provide the food. So together with that food going in, with the water situation, of which 90% of Gaza's water comes domestically from Gaza, of course, the food going in, the water and the aid going in mean that there is no shortage of aid going to Gaza or food. Where there is hunger in Gaza, it is hunger orchestrated by Hamas. It is within Hamas's interest to try and produce a negative image of their people. But we're getting as much food aid in as possible. If only Hamas would stop throwing mortars and rockets at the crossing points. But despite that, we're still getting the food aid in. And that's our objective, to make sure that Gazans do not go hungry. Our enemy, of course, in all of this work is to get rid of Hamas. Our target is Hamas, not ordinary Gazans. We know that they're not going anywhere. We here in Israel are not going anywhere. Ultimately, we will need to live in peace and security for both peoples. Our objective is to get rid of Hamas and focus after that on building a better future, not just for Gazans, but for Israelis as well. Next question, please.
You have a question from Gidi Kleiman of the BBC, and he says, can you confirm that Israeli officials will go to Cairo in the next few hours and whether they have a mandate to conduct negotiation?
Thank you for that question, Giddy. Yes, I did confirm that in my briefing and made that quite clear. The government has given a mandate for our negotiators to go on that trip. They are mandated by Israel's government, of course, and our ultimate objective is to get our people out of Hamas' hands, whether it happens diplomatically or militarily. We would prefer that it happened. Of course, we would prefer that it happened diplomatically, but Hamas, in either case, will be defeated. Our objective, one of our three objectives, is to ensure that Gaza can never again be a threat to Israel again. And that, of course, means that we will destroy Hamas. And of course, it means that we will bring back our 132 hostages. Next question, please.
You have a question from Victoria Elms of Sky News UK. And she asked, did aid organizations there are saying there's no aid entering Gaza via land crossings as of this morning. Can you confirm this, please?
No, that's incorrect. Thank you for that question. That's incorrect, as I made clear. I can give you the figures from yesterday. If you want today's figures, please go directly to COGAT, who coordinate aid going into Gaza. I've got the information up until yesterday, and we said that crossings in the north were still open, together with other routes of getting aid into Gaza by airdrops, etc. So Hamas has made it their objectives to destroy or to threaten those crossings. 4 of our young soldiers, one of them was 18, the other 3 were 19 years old, were killed yesterday, and they were protecting that border crossing, trying to get as much aid into Gaza as possible. I think it's extremely important that when people talk about this conflict, that the role of Hamas in stopping aid in getting into Gaza is reported. Simply coming up with this line that there's no aid going into Gaza. Number one, it's not true, but of course it obscures the fact that it's Hamas that is trying to stop. They're looting the trucks and they're trying to stop this aid into coming in. Why? Because they're trying to save their skin. They want pictures of hungry Gazans. They are orchestrating these pictures, and unfortunately, too many people are swallowing them up, creating this false narrative of a libel against Israel and our people. We're trying to get as much aid as we possibly can into Gaza, and that effort is being hampered. It's being hampered by Hamas, but it will not stop it because we have other ways of getting it in. Next question, please.
You have a question from Cameron Monks of newspaper, and they ask, you said, quote, precise counter operation in Rafa, but also, quote, the annihilation of 4 Hamas battalions. What kind of scale of military operations will we see in the coming days?
Thank you very much for that question. I won't be sharing with you our precise military strategy in defeating the last 4 battalions of Hamas in Gaza. What I can tell you is that our army and our soldiers and our people are determined. I've told you about our precise operations. We've released maps of the areas which we're going for. I've told you already that we have secured the border crossing where so much of Hamas's deadly arms have made their way through. We've secured that border crossing with Egypt, and we will do everything in our power to bring our hostages home. I remind you that the last 2 hostages which were rescued from Gaza were rescued from Rafa. They were rescued from Rafa. The mortars and rockets which were fired on Sunday at Kerem Shalom were fired from Rafa. Rafa can no longer be allowed to operate and to continue as a Hamas stronghold. Hamas have said this very, very clearly. They will simply regroup, and they wish to do October 7th again and again and again. And the thing is, we do believe them. An error made by too many people for too long is to not take seriously when terrorists say the things that they want to do. That is not a problem which we suffer from here in Israel. When terrorists say that they want to kill us, we believe them. We believe their sincerity, and we're going after them. Hamas will no longer be able to threaten us from anywhere in Rafa. Thank you very much. Next question, please.
You have a question from Frederick Edgar of Interplanetary Television, and he says the Turkish vice president says that Israel's operation in Gaza's Rafa city marks another war crime by Israel, and Turkey will continue working for Israel's leadership to be legally punished. What is Israel's government's response to the Turkish vice president?
Thank you for that question, Fred. So the actions of Turkey in this war have been nothing short of, they are, the images coming out of Hamas officials, leading officials, in warm embraces with Turkey's president simply just confirms his dictatorial status over that country. Unfortunately, the one place where it's looking more and more likely that Hamas have safety and security is in Turkey now. So it looks like Turkey is trying to nurture a reputation as the terrorists' friend. They have done some terrible things in this conflict, and our foreign minister and our prime minister have made our measures and our views against Turkey and its president extremely clear. Thank you very much. Next question, please.
You have a question from NPR, and they ask, last night, Hamas said it had agreed to an Egyptian-Qatari ceasefire proposal. Israel says the terms do not meet its demands. What are those terms, and how is a ceasefire proposal that Hamas agreed to different from the deal previously on the table?
Thank you for that question from NPR. We will not allow Hamas to remain standing at the end of this conflict. We simply will not allow Hamas to remain standing at the end of this conflict. Now, that is one of the three war aims. The other war aims are to get our hostages released, and of course to ensure that Gaza never again can form a threat to us. Hamas are simply trying to save their skins. Look, NPR, this conflict could end this afternoon, okay? This afternoon before we here in Israel put our kids to bed. And the way it could end is quite simple. If Hamas lay down their arms and release our hostages, that is the way for this conflict to end. Hamas need to lay down their arms and give us back our hostages. That is the way for this conflict to end. Anything else where Hamas remains in power is simply not an option for Israel. We refuse to live next to this terrorist entity anymore, because they say extremely clearly, we are listening to them. Many in the world have stopped listening to them. We are listening to them. They wish to do October the 7th again and again and again. Now, NPR, we believe them. If you don't believe them, then that's your prerogative. But we believe them, and that is why we are of the understanding, and we've come to the conclusion that any end of this conflict that leaves Hamas standing is not an option. We will always prioritize our hostages, always. Those people need to be brought home. They are scoured they are embedded in the hearts of every single Israeli, and I hope right-minded, right-thinking person everywhere in the world, including NPR listeners. We need to get our hostages home, but Hamas cannot be left standing because they wish to destroy my country. They wish to kill Jews. They say very, very openly, no matter what they say in midnight press conferences last night, they call my people the descendants of apes and pigs. Okay, they are a radical jihadist organization backed by Iran. They're against democracy. You know, the scenes of US college students marching for Hamas is absolutely sickening. In one sense, Hamas have done a phenomenally good PR effort because they have managed to pull the wool over those, what I hope are well-meaning college students. But unfortunately, we here in Israel recognize Hamas for precisely what they are. They are anti-Semites. They are Jew haters in the traditional sense. When you listen to them, they say it very, very clearly. They say, we wish you dead. We want you to be killed. They tried to kill more of us on October the 7th. The only thing that stopped them was not their intention, it was their means. And thankfully, the IDF was able to stop them and kill so many of them, and then take the fight directly into Gaza to destroy Hamas. And that's what we're doing in Rafa. We're destroying the last 4 battalions of Rafa in Rafa, and we will be successful. Next question, please.
You have a question from Mark McKinnon of The Globe. And he says, since Israel is concerned about the spread of false narratives, when might Israel allow foreign journalists to enter Gaza via perhaps a partially reopened Erez crossing so that they can report independently?
Thank you for that question about journalists going into Gaza. So, of course, there are many, many journalists currently in Gaza. All the pictures you'll see will be of media trucks with their satellite dishes on their roofs, broadcasting what's happening in Gaza. The IDF has taken many, many journalists, not just journalists who have an understanding of Israel's unique position in the Middle East, but also journalists who are extremely critical of Israel. We've taken many, many journalists into Gaza. We've shown them the terror tunnels. We've shown them how hospitals have been abused to support Hamas. We've shown them how Hamas have fought from civilian areas, which has resulted in the damage to civilian areas, hospitals, mosques and schools. We've shown them as well the kindergartens whereby children are indoctrinated with hatred of Jews. We've shown many, many journalists these things together with the journalists already in Gaza, the local journalists. Now, there's 2 other things I would say. Number one, this is an active war zone, an active war zone. Our priority is the security of our soldiers fighting this genocidal terrorist organization. Hamas would have no problem whatsoever in targeting journalists. You know, our priority is our soldiers. So, and also our hostages as well. We will do nothing that jeopardizes the safety of our hostages. We will do nothing whatsoever to jeopardize the safety of our hostages. So together with our brave soldiers in Gaza and together with our hostages who are still being held in Gaza, that has been our policy up until now. But of course, the story is getting out of Gaza. It's getting out every single day. Thank you. Next question, please.
We have a question from Jim Williams of Zengar International News. And he asks, can you confirm that the IDF action taken in Rafah is in reaction to a possible terrorist attack and not the beginning of the mission to take out the 4 Hamas brigades?
Thank you, Jim, for that question. So I would say it's precisely the opposite. This is the beginning of our mission to take out the last 4 Hamas brigades in Rafah. You should be in no doubt about that whatsoever. Okay, our objective now is to remove Hamas, the last 4 battalions of Hamas from Rafah. We don't say this will be the complete destruction of Hamas. Hamas will still exist, but they will not be organized in battalions as they are still right now, able to organize themselves to attack us. We're going after the last 4 battalions of Hamas. We are liberating. Okay, our army is an army of liberation. Liberation. We have no territorial claims whatsoever in Gaza. That's not our objective. We don't want to live there. We pulled our people out of there in 2005 precisely for Gazans to have a better future. They unfortunately chose a future which was run by Hamas. We're correcting that mistake in terms of making sure that decent Palestinians that are able to run the lives of Gazans, you know, all the money that has gone into Gaza, which should have been used to, you know, lift up the people, well-meaning international money, which was meant to lift up the people of Gaza for more hospitals, for more schools, for more infrastructure, for more roads. All that money was used and sunk into the ground in Gaza to produce a terror tunnel network that is twice the size of the London Underground, twice the size of the London Underground. So be in no doubt, this is not as you say it, Jim. It is because we wish to destroy the last 4 battalions of Gaza, of Rafah, of Hamas in Rafa.
Last question from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press, and she asked, Hezbollah has been firing at northern Israel throughout the day more frequently than it has done so in the past. Does this signal the closure of the diplomatic option for a resolution along the Lebanese border?
Thank you for that question, Hannah, about our northern border. I told you the very sad news of 2 of our soldiers having been killed by a Hezbollah drone up north. There are rockets, very serious attacks happening in Israel's north. We know that this is Iran trying to put even more pressure on us, but it will not work. We have said very clearly that our preference is for a diplomatic resolution, for UN resolutions to be adhered to very, very clearly. They all say, these UN resolutions, that Hezbollah should be pushed behind the Litani River. We hope that that can be done diplomatically, but we reserve the right to attack Hamas, Hezbollah in Lebanon. We reserve the right and to push them back. If they will not move back voluntarily, we will push them back if a diplomatic resolution is not found.
Thank you. There are no further questions.
Thank you very much. So the next briefing will be tomorrow. In the meantime, please stay safe. Thank you for joining me, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.